An Italian numbers game called Mora dates back to ancient Rome and can become so rambunctious that it was once banned in Italy because it caused so many fights. In tonight's 11 p.m. special, Sally Phillips shows us how a local league is keeping the cultural game alive.
To an outsider, it looks like a heated argument. But the yelling and gesturing is all part of a game called Mora.
And it gets a little bit loud at times, but no one gets angry. We all love each other.
Every month, the Georgetown in Boardman is filled with men yelling numbers at each other in Italian.
Originally started in Italy, probably during Caesar's time. It was something the Roman army did in between wars. They had nothing to do, they would just play the game.
Frank Corso helped organize the Youngstown Mora League 29 years ago. One of the last of its kind.
The tradition of Mora was dying out in the early 1980s when the Youngstown League began with about 14 people. It's now grown to nearly 200.
The 28 teams play every month. Two players yell out numbers in Italian and throw fingers. You earn points if you correctly called out the total number of fingers between two players.
It's like rock, paper, scissors, but we use numbers. But guys, you have to think to outsmart people. Watch people's patterns.
And those angry faces and loud voices are all part of the strategy.
That's all, boys. Good shot.
Your first throw, you turn it on. You win a couple points, your adrenaline kicks in, your intensity level raises, and your voice raises a little bit. You know, it's a little intimidating. It can be.
The men don't play for money. They play for bragging rights.
And the best part of it, most beautiful part, is that we have a lot of teams here that have fathers, sons, grandsons playing.
Families like the Zapsicks come from as far away as Midland and Monaca, Pennsylvania.
We've been playing it ever since I can remember. You know, you grow up, you watching your father, his friends, you learn, and it just kind of gets passed down.
The sons and grandsons are the ones who plan to continue the tradition.
I brought him up, I played him, I beat him for years. Now they're turning a corner on me, and I'm proud as hell.
Italians and non-Italians alike keeping tradition alive.
Good game, guys. Nice game. Nice game.
With more local news, I'm Sally Phillips.
Everybody who lived around Youngstown probably wrote it and were sad the day it was gone.
Idora Park's carousel was sold at auction in 1984 for $385,000. So where is it now?
21 News reporter Matt Stone went to New York City, where it has just come back to life.
In the fall of 1984, still reeling from the loss of its steel mills, Youngstown was now going to lose a cherished piece of everyone's childhood. An auction was held at Idora Park in October.
Certainly, as a member of the National Carousel Association, we hope that there is a buyer here with sufficient money to buy the machine intact. The fact that it's an original machine here since 1922, and it's in such beautiful original condition, it should really be saved.
It was. Brooklyn wanted to develop a park with a carousel as its focal point. Artist Jane Walentis traveled all over America looking for the perfect one, and she found it in Youngstown. Now, 27 years later, her hard work is on display between the Brooklyn and Manhattan bridges. The carousel sits inside a $10 million jewelry box of a building made of 4.5-inch thick acrylic walls. The view is stunning. But it took a lot of work to get everything here. It came from Youngstown in pieces. The first thing she did in 1984, she stripped the entire carousel platform. She called a professional art restorer from the Metropolitan Museum of Art to refurbish all the original paintings. All the mirrors and tiny jewels were saved. Then came the painfully slow process of restoring each horse. all 48 of them.
All of the horses here were restored to their original colors of 1922, with the exception of just one. This horse was so badly damaged in the fire of 1984 that they had no idea what its original colors were.
The heat blistered most of the paint off this chariot. She decided to keep most of the old paint on the chariots and just filled in the burnt spots with new artist oils. Every inch of the carousel was scraped with an X-Acto knife.
I worked alone for 20 some odd years, just taking it back to the original paint. I worked with a carpenter who made all the repairs that needed to be made. I documented all the old original paint from 1922, all the schemes and the designs that I found, all the stenciling. Believe it or not, it was really fun. I mean, there was this constant discovery. It was like a little archaeological dig, and then I'd, record what I found with drawings and color matches and photographs.
Through the process, she would find little mementos inside the horses that children left behind.
Coins would drop out, and tickets from Idora Park picnics would come out, and I have pages full of cellophane envelopes with all these mementos from Idora Park.
Jane has her favorite. She says it's the lead horse.
I think she has a beautiful face, and I love all these gorgeous trappings and the big Philadelphia Toboggan Company logo on the saddle blanket. It's extraordinary.
Over the years, Jane heard from Youngstowners, some happy the carousel was being saved, others angry she took it away. Now she says hundreds of Youngstown people have already visited the carousel in Brooklyn. Many get very emotional, and Jane gets teary-eyed just thinking about them.
I am so touched by their affection for this carousel. So I feel great now about having saved it, and it gives them a place to come and visit their memories and bring their children and their grandchildren.
Jane's Carousel is now becoming a destination, not just for the city, but for the world. This group of tourists from France were quick to get lost in its magic. So after 27 years, Youngstown's time for the carousel has well passed, and it's time for a new generation of children, young and old, to build new memories of a cherished piece of our history. We all miss it, but we must be happy it's in the good hands of the city that never sleeps. Reporting from Brooklyn Bridge Park in New York City, I'm Matt Stone.
From a distance, it's hard to make out, but as he drives closer, you'll see a man in a motorized wheelchair on a mission.
It's an automatic magnet for people to talk to me.
California resident Chet Dyerson decided to build his own motorized wheelchair.
It's got a 250cc Kawasaki engine and a golf cart drive clutch.
And drive at 55 miles per hour from California to Washington, D.C. to raise awareness about spinal cord injury.
I have gotten a lot of people's attention going down the road. I'm getting emails and phone calls.
Chet injured his spine in a motocross accident.
My injury is 11 years old. Chances of them fixing me are probably slim. And, this isn't about me. It's about young kids that get hurt.
His sons, Clint and Casey, both motocross riders, have come along with their dad and their dog Sprocket to ride for a cure.
At first, I didn't think he was really doing it. And when he said he was going to Washington, I thought he meant Washington State, not Washington, D.C.
It's pretty fulfilling, it brings out a lot of good in people.
They stop in towns like Salem to meet with supporters like Craig Gaynor of New Tech Corporation.
We made a donation, and we'd like to challenge any other businesses in the area to, make a donation to this, because everybody knows somebody that's in a wheelchair.
Just 300 miles short of their 4,000-mile journey, Chet's plan is to take his push for further research to Washington, where he'll arrive July 4th.
I would like to get an audience of congressmen and actually sit down and speak to them.
And along the way, get more people talking about spinal cord injury and how to cure it. With more local news, I'm Sally Phillips. Silent for 50 years, the first powerful notes played by the Skinner organ were Bach.
It's actually such a huge instrument that it dominates everything. When it is part of a performance, all of the other instruments are keyed off of the organ.
The fully restored organ once again reverberated through Stambaugh Auditorium at a free demonstration Monday night, where over 300 people came to hear it played by organist Edward Moore.
I've never had an experience like this before in my life and probably won't again. It's rare for an organist to play an organ that hasn't been heard for so many years, and it's truly an overwhelming experience.
When the organ was damaged by water from a leaky roof, it was too expensive to refurbish until 2 years ago, when the state kicked in $260,000 and the Bradley Foundation picked up the rest of the $1.2 million tab.
The second largest grant given because of the importance and rarity of this organ. So it's a gift to Youngstown, and that's how the Stambaugh brothers felt when they built this wonderful building.
And now fully restored in its original 1926 form, the organ console communicates with a powerful turbine engine below the stage, which blows air through the pipes. The 4,000 pipes in this organ range in size from 32 feet tall and 750 pounds, all the way down to ones the size of this pen. A Skinner organ in its original form is a rare find.
A lot of them were destroyed, a lot of them were altered. But luckily, because this wasn't working well because of water damage, it was left alone.
And left opportunity for new life. The Skinner organ will be rededicated in a performance September 18th. With more local news, I'm Sally Phillips.
Good. And he's made a lot of progress. Last week he couldn't have begun to do this.
Things are rolling right along for the folks at the Sebring Unicycle Club.
He's improved his bounce here.
They're rolling along in so many different directions, it's hard to know where to look first.
Yeah, come together.
But how did they learn how to do any of these countless tricks in the first place?
Okay, jump. Oh, that was tricky.
Meet their patient teacher, Dr. Paul Getty. Most 80-year-olds are retired. Instead, Dr. Getty chooses to balance on one tire.
Well, about 40 years ago, I had a hankering to learn to unicycle. So I just went to a bike shop and picked out a unicycle of all things and taught myself to ride. And I've been teaching kids how to ride ever since.
The saying goes, if you can't do, teach. But that's most certainly not true in Dr. Getty's case. His students literally follow in his path.
He is amazing.
Students of all ages.
Our youngest is 6, and the oldest is myself. I'm just about 80.
For Betsy Cornell, joining this club was her chance to achieve a lifelong goal.
Unicycling, something that I tried when I was in my early 20s and couldn't figure out, so it was something that I had always wanted to do, and I went to the club and said to Paul, is this just for kids? And he said, no, it's for anyone.
And there are plenty of pieces of equipment to accommodate first-timers. If you're wondering where all this equipment came from, well, most of it's Dr. Getty's. He bought his first unicycle 40 years ago, and now he owns more than 20.
It takes away fear, I think, once you get into this. You can't be fearful. You have to be able to have a little courage to do many of these things. That's it. Very nice.
And it's the courage from conquering these circus-like tricks that has changed 10-year-old Honesty Schweitzer. Her grades in school were teetering right on the edge. Her grandfather was the first to notice her shift in confidence after joining this free club.
The self-esteem that these kids get out of this, they come in here low self-esteem, and by the time Paul works with them kids, they want to excel. Yeah, I even noticed it this year in her schoolwork.
He put out his arm and let me hold it so I could teeterboard. Then after a bit, I never needed anybody to hold me after a bit. Learn, practice, get your way to the top.
It's the balancing back and forth, balancing between success and failure that keeps this club moving. And its fearless leader will be gliding along for years to come.
I often watch the Today Show, and of course people celebrate their 100th birthday, and I sort of have a little dream of performing on my unicycle at 100. So